Money expires. Assets don't. This is the most uncomfortable truth you will ever hear about your bank account. Most people spend their entire lives chasing a number, believing that once they accumulate enough currency, they have secured a piece of the future. They think of money as a permanent store of value, a safe harbor where their hard work is frozen in time, waiting for them. But today on Finance Through Time, we are declassifying the reality the system was designed to hide. You do not own the money in your pocket. You are merely renting its purchasing power, and the rent is due every single day. In a world of managed inflation and infinite debt, your cash is not a trophy. It is a decaying battery that loses its charge the longer you hold it. To understand how we were tricked into working for a melting currency, we have to look at the very nature of what money used to be. For thousands of years, money was a receipt for labor already performed. If you held a gold coin in ancient Rome or a silver shekel in Babylon, you held a physical piece of the earth that required sweat, blood, and time to extract. That money didn't have an expiration date because the universe itself provided the limit to its supply. It was a hard asset because no emperor or priest could conjure it out of thin air. When you owned gold, you owned a slice of reality that was independent of any government's promises. But as civilizations grew, the gatekeepers realized that hard money was an obstacle to total control. A system based on reality is a system that cannot be easily manipulated. So, the alchemists of the ancient world began the first great experiment in money renting. In the great temple economies of Mesopotamia, the priests were the first to realize that they didn't need to give you the grain. They only needed to give you a clay tablet representing the grain. This was the birth of the ledger, the moment money moved from being a thing you hold to a permission you are granted. The priests controlled the storehouse, and they decided how much your tablet was worth from one season to the next. They were the original landlords of value, and the people were their tenants. The modern version of this trap was finalized in the summer of 1971. When the last link between the dollar and gold was severed, money stopped being a measure of productivity and became a pure instrument of policy. Since that night, the rules of ownership have changed. Every dollar created since 1971 is born as debt, a promise to pay that requires constant expansion to stay upright. Because the supply of this paper is infinite, its value must be engineered to decline. This is why central banks target a healthy 2% inflation rate. They aren't trying to stabilize the economy. They are charging you a 2% annual fee for the privilege of holding their currency. Think about what renting your money actually means. If you save $100,000 today and the system inflates by 5%, you haven't lost the paper, but you have lost $5,000 worth of your life's work. You are effectively paying a subscription fee to the state and the banking system just to keep your value in their ledger. Inflation is the rent you pay for a currency you thought you owned. It ensures that you can never stop running. It keeps you on the treadmill of consumption because if you stand still, your wealth evaporates. The system doesn't want you to be a store of value person. It wants you to be a velocity person, someone who produces energy and hands it over as fast as possible. This is the ultimate genius of the Cantillon effect. When the government prints new money, it doesn't reach everyone at the same time. The first ones, the megabanks, the elite financiers, and the primary dealers, receive the fresh currency while it still holds its full magic. They use this early money to buy up reality, land, infrastructure, and raw materials at yesterday's prices. By the time that money trickles down to your paycheck, its purchasing power has already been spent. You are receiving late money, currency that has already been diluted by the feast of the elites. They buy the assets that last, and they pay you with the money that expires. History shows us that every empire that reaches this stage, where the gap between the producer and the owner is managed by a melting currency, is an empire preparing for a reset. From the clipped coins of the later Roman Empire to the paper illusions of revolutionary France, the logic remains the same. The gatekeepers will always choose to inflate the debt away rather than admit they can't pay it back. They will always choose to tax your time through the currency rather than tax your wealth through the law. The money in your hand is a claim on a future that is being sold out from under you. Once you realize that you are renting your money, your entire perspective on saving must change. You are working for a unit of debt that is programmed to return to its source. You are a battery in a circuit designed to lose its charge. The only way to win a game where the currency expires is to move your value into the things that do not. If Part 1 revealed that your currency is a decaying battery, Part 2 is the manual for escaping the circuit. We have seen how the ancient priests of Mesopotamia and the bankers of 17th century London built the first walls of this financial arrangement. But the true mastery of the money renting system was achieved on August 15th, 1971. When the link between the dollar and gold was severed, money became a pure instrument of policy, backed by nothing but the word of the state. From that night forward, the rent you pay to hold currency, otherwise known as inflation, became the primary mechanism for funding empires. You are working for late money. currency that has already been diluted by the feast of the elites before it ever reaches your hands. But the gatekeepers are now preparing the final evolution of their architecture. Central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. This is the endgame of the money rent trap. When money becomes a programmable permission issued directly by the state, the gatekeepers will no longer need to wait for inflation to slowly erode your value. They will control the flow of your labor with the stroke of a key. Imagine money that has an expiration date, forcing you to spend it on approved goods rather than saving it for your future. Imagine an account that can be restricted or frozen instantly if your behavior does not align with the narrative of the day. In this world, you are no longer even a tenant of your wealth. You are a user of a government-issued software that can be updated or deleted without your consent. This is the ultimate expression of the Cantillon effect. The people closest to the source of money creation, the megabanks and elite investment firms, get to spend the fresh money while it still holds its full purchasing power. They use that credit to buy up the world's real resources: land, infrastructure, and monopolies. By the time this money trickles down to your paycheck, its magic has already been spent, and the cost of your rent and food has already risen to match the new supply. You are paying the retail price for a world that the first ones bought at a wholesale discount using your future labor as collateral. The system survives only if debt keeps growing, and it requires you to stay in motion on a treadmill of consumption just to maintain the illusion of stability. So, how do you stop being a tenant and start being an owner? History provides a cold but consistent answer. Real value cannot be printed, cloned, or deleted by an algorithm. True wealth is found in the original Bitcoin, which is land, the finite, visible, and unforgeable stage upon which all human life performs. Land is the oldest ledger, and it remains the only asset that the state cannot manufacture out of thin air. Real wealth is found in gold, which has outlasted every paper empire and every temporary monetary measure in human history. Most importantly, it is found in specialized skills that solve enduring human needs, because the system can dilute your savings, but it cannot devalue your character or your knowledge. True financial freedom is the process of reducing your dependency on the machine. As the philosopher King Marcus Aurelius reminded us 2,000 years ago, true power is not the accumulation of fortune, but the sovereignty of the mind and the refusal to be ruled by external illusions. The modern financial system is designed to keep you emotionally overexposed and financially overleveraged. It wants you to be afraid of missing out on the next digital bubble, so you keep your energy inside the rented currency pool. Breaking free requires the discipline to need less, to own assets that have intrinsic utility, and to understand the game before it resets. The current global debt mountain of over $300 trillion is a countdown that cannot be stopped by policy. When the illusion of paper wealth finally shatters, the only people standing will be those who anchored themselves to reality. The first ones win because they control the story of money, and you have been trained to be a character in their script. But here on Finance Through Time, we are showing you the ink. Once you see the leash, you are no longer just a part of the machine. You gain the power to stand outside of it. The fountain of new money will keep flowing, and the ripples will keep devaluing your time. The only question is whether you will keep paying rent for your life, or if you will build your foundation on things that don't expire. History has answers. I merely show you where to look. And if this deep financial journey has given you a new perspective, like the video and subscribe, because the real story begins the moment you recognize the system you're living inside.